From YouTube to the stars above, a disappointed little Timmy Seanor tonight. Yep. If you haven't heard the news yet, because it's been all over major news networks, NASA had a press conference today. And boy, oh boy, was that one worth flushing down the toilet. Let's get to it.
Nobody's gonna know.
They're gonna know.
Well, Tim, it was a whole lot of nothing today as some of the brightest people in the astrophysics world gathered at NASA HQ for what was supposed to be a public forum, yet their YouTube channel had shut off the chat during their public forum. And the questions that the public wanted to ask were as colorless as beige walls on a beige house. I'm telling you, Tim, I don't know if I could be any more disappointed in NASA than I am today. I was expecting this. We got exactly what I expected, exactly what I called. You're Mr. Optimism. I'm Mr. Pessimism. And yet you're feeling the same way I am. Welcome to my side of the world, Tim.
Wait, was that today? NASA had that. Was that today? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it was interesting. I pulled some information out, of course, that I can't wait to share. It wasn't a total waste of time, but there were a couple of things that were new to me, so it was great. And of course, as you said, the ever optimist, we just saw NASA talking about UFOs. And I got to tell you, every time I heard UAP, I was thinking UFOs, same way each and every one of you were. So we heard NASA talking on a realistic level, 14 scientists from all different walks of life and science talking seriously about a topic and in a way that was pretty realistic. We saw a lot of blank looks on their faces. We've got some great quotes coming for everyone. But yes, we watched 14 scientists struggle through how to collate and collect data on UFOs.
Here's a couple of things that I really, really was surprised in. Number one, I was extremely surprised that this table of brainiacs, and I don't mean that to be insultive, okay? These are smart people, okay? These are brilliant people. But I was surprised at how much they struggled with the UFO format. They have had 9 months to research this topic. They have had 9 months to prepare themselves for videos that the public would never be shown, for information the public would never be shown. They were supposed to look within the walls of NASA to see what was hiding in there. We never got anything out of NASA. They were more interested in fighter pilots. They were more interested in the military incursions. They were more interested in what the FAA had to say. There was nothing about going inside NASA's closets. I found that very disappointing. Darcy Weir, who is a documentarian out of Vancouver, British Columbia, very talented. He has done a 3-part series on NASA, starting at the Mercury launches, the first rockets, okay, preparing for eventually Apollo going to the moon. And he has more information and more voices from astronauts and test pilots claiming what they are seeing about how they're being followed. Okay? An X-15 pilot claiming that he is being followed by an anomalous object that is traveling faster than him at 315,000 feet. And we got none of that. The only thing that we got was Science Man Carey talking about a Bart Simpson balloon, and then everybody laughing. Tim, I don't know if this was just a preliminary hearing to introduce everybody. I'm going to let you break this down for our radio public. Okay. But for me, or pardon me, Kelly, scientist Kelly, not Carey, I apologize. Okay. But for me, as much as I expected this, I hurt for people who want answers because they delivered a whole whopping 0 today. Your
You're not
thoughts?
alone. Yeah, you're not alone in that sentiment. So to break it down for people that may want the details, members of NASA independent study team held a public briefing on its current efforts to categorize and evaluate data related to unidentified anomalous phenomenon, or UAP, in a meeting that included participation from the DoD and FAA officials involved in similar efforts. Excuse me. According to NASA, UAP can be defined as observations of events in the sky that cannot be identified as aircraft or known natural phenomenon from a scientific perspective. And during opening remarks at Wednesday's event, Daniel Evans, Assistant Deputy Associate Administrator for Research with NASA's Science Mission Directorate, said the team updated its terminology to convey that UAP, represented all domain anomalous phenomena rather than merely aerial observations. However, Evans clarified that most of the data NASA currently is evaluating as part of its independent study still involves observations of aerial phenomena. During the opening remarks, Evans also expressed his displeasure that several of the study members have been subjected to online abuse due to their decision to participate on this panel. And Evans even added that NASA's security team is actively addressing the issue. So NASA stands behind all its panelists and won't tolerate any of the abuse. And
Can we stop
so,
there for a second? Because
absolutely.
I think that's an important post here. Okay, who was harassing them? Was it fellow scientists? Was it some of the nut bars in ufology who don't believe anything that's going on, that think this is a giant ruse? Because you know what? Even though they failed today, we still need them, Tim. We still need these scientists to get on board with this subject. Okay. So, did they say who or what was causing this harassment?
Um, Not in the public portion, it was asked. And we can assume, you know, come on, Twitter. It's not that big a deal. This is preliminary. And so, if you want to get into some of the quotes that we had, I can probably give you a couple of those as we move forward with the story. But more on a positive note, I would like to consider that Ted Rowe from NARCAP had something to say. Would you like that quick quote?
Yeah, let's do that.
Ted Rowe from NARCAP says that NASA is just starting its study. Arrow is 1 year into its in since the office was officially established in May 2022. And it took us about 18 months to implement the UAP program at the American Institute of Aeronautics and Aerospace. And it takes time to design and implement a program. From initial implementation to research, publication, and eventually conclusions is a long process. Independence, neutrality, and transparency are foundations of scientific research and publication. A common scientific research arc estimate is 10 years. So by that, he's saying that we should be patient and allow these people to do their work. This was a preliminary conference to try and figure out how they can put things into an order that they can all agree on as to what evidence is evidence. And I think that that's an important place to start from. We did see a lot of people very new to this topic, but please back over to you, Dave.
Well, hold on here. No, it doesn't take 10 years. Not at all. Okay. And
Potentially.
no, it doesn't, Tim. Let me explain why. Okay. It's a cop out. And the reason why it's a cop out is because they already have the scientists who are of serious knowledge that could bring these people in to break this down ASAP, probably within 6 to 8 months, maybe a year. All right. Where was Gary Nolan? Where was Jacques Vallée? Why are they not on this panel?
Great
Okay.
point.
Where
I
where
asked
is
that same question.
where is where is Eric Davis? All of these scientists that have been involved with this, even people who know what we do, you know, Science Bob. Okay. Now, granted, he doesn't have a security clearance anymore, but that's just throwing a name out there. There are hundreds of scientists who are part of the SCU, the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, who could have done a much better job than a bunch of rookies who don't even know what UAP means coming out there and saying we need a decade in order to figure this out. No, what you're doing is you're begging for money. You're making a cop out for budget and money to study these fake UAP. That's what it is.
Yeah. And Dave, I got to highlight, I'm trying to bring you all aspects. My personal opinion is very heavily weighed into the disappointment. My question was posed before the panel at the very end, but it was grouped in a question so that my direct question about astronauts and whether they're going to be brought forward and any of their testimony brought to the public was actually asked and glanced over because it was grouped within a multiple question, so that by the time the panelist was answering, he was only remembering portions of the question. It was very cleverly done and frustrating for the people in, the public audience with their questions that needed to be answered. So my personal opinion was utter frustration. And I saw a lot of people squirming in their seats and potentially being deceptive. Some of the people in the know there, especially you had mentioned Scott Kelly, the Bart Simpson balloon frustration. Why would you bring that up? Why talk about things that are mundane? He could have brought up an equally interesting story, I think, that about something anomalous. And he's running the NASA astronaut office, and he says to his recollection, there's never been any mentions of UFOs. Well, that's really hard to swallow because we know that that's probably not what they're debriefed on in that office. So he's able to potentially say that statement truthfully. There was a lot of ducking and diving going on during this. So my personal opinion, I'm trying to keep out, and you're getting it boiling over a little bit here, but it was fairly frustrating to watch people like Spurgle saying that we need high quality data. That is absolutely frustrating to hear a quote like that addressing the often sporadic data collection methods used to collect information on UAP, quote unquote. Very frustrating to hear when we know that these are the top data collection um, instruments on the planet being used by NASA and the DoD and Space Force and so on. And these are all working together hand in glove. So there really is no excuse at this point for high quality data being not available to the scientists right now. And let me just highlight my final thing before I finish my rant. I would love to highlight that we don't need to see any more mundane videos of airplanes. If you deciphered it as airplanes, we don't need to see that. Bring us the stuff your scientists don't have an answer for. Over to you.
We got about a minute to go before we have to go to break. At the bottom of the hour, it's a UFO report talking NASA tonight. You know what's funny is I actually have my NASA shorts on. I do. They're my most comfortable shorts. But, the idea behind it, I mean, look at Sean Kirkpatrick, the head of the Aero program. He comes on and says, there's nothing in the sky, there's nothing in the water. Played it right down. This is your job, dude. Your job is to find UFOs. Your job is to take these reports. You have well over 800, even if 2 to 5% of them are anomalous. You got something going on here. And that's
Absolutely.
why, and I will reiterate to my audience ad nauseum, there's a big difference between UAP and UFO. Because if only 2 to 5% of those reports are anomalous of objects that they don't understand what they are, that means the 95 to 98% are man-made. What is man-made? UAP. And on that note, Tim, we're going to come back. We're going to break this NASA thing down for the next half hour. It's that important. It's our only topic on the UFO report tonight. We're going to get more into the attitudes of a lot of these people that were on stage. They're better than us. They don't know what we know, but they know more. UFO report continues right after this. Look at Cat Chaser. Tim is an SOR treasure.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you. Cheers.
What are you cracking there?
Just some water.
Oh yeah, Mike Bothwell, the Dave 101 will be on this tomorrow. Dark Protocol, how you doing? Tokeland, how you doing?
Jeremy Jones thinks I'm a CIA plant. I'm not that exciting, unfortunately. I just try to tell both sides and I report out of the news and stuff. And I'm actually writing or reading from the debrief. Anyone that wants to read exactly what I'm discussing.
What kind of CIA plant are you? Are you a rose, a tulip, maybe a daffodil?
Good question. I'd be a cactus. I think I'm just sitting out there, no water, just stranded.
Hey Timmy,
Jeremy was kidding. Thanks, Jay. But you know what? I get it. I could be, but I'm not. I'm not that important or exciting.
You are though.
I don't.
You just don't let it out. Hi, Doll. How are you?
Oh man, I can't wait till we come back. I wish we could bring up some of the visuals. I have so many visuals I could share from what I got. Being on my end of that thing. So they only glanced on the underwater portion of things, and the oceanographer barely spoke. But boy, is there more to that. Refusing to talk about.
But the question here is my big thing about it, Tim. Their job when this fake study first came out, they were supposed to investigate NASA.
Good point.
NASA has nothing to do with the ocean. NASA has nothing to do with the FAA outside of when their rockets launch.
Yeah, but they're reporting on this as being the hotspots. And I think it's pretty obvious that it's not interested on inland interests, right?
Yeah. But here's my point, though, Tim. They paid $100,000. The government gave them, it doesn't sound like much, but gave them $100,000. That's about $8,000 a piece for the scientists to look into NASA, to talk about what they could do to get involved with this UFO stuff. And we didn't hear sweet F all about NASA.
Good point.
Okay? We didn't hear anything about NASA. We heard everything that we have already heard, except some old man did not bring up swamp gas. That was a victory today.
Bart Simpson balloon made its way. across. There were still chuckles amongst the people that are supposed to be studying it. That was incredibly frustrating to witness live. I mean, come on, guys. That was brutal. And then we haven't even gotten into the debunking of how they
Oh,
did.
God.
I mean,
half an hour is not enough on this. It's not enough.
forget about it. I have a lot of notes. I was taking notes.
They need, these people need to be taken into a back room and shaken until all their brains fall out.
Well, what's funny is all they would need to do is ask the right people, I guess, in the public that are actually getting results if they want to know what sensors to use. They're not even expensive. I mean,
and for those of you who don't know, Tic Tacs are now, thank you, random guy. Tic Tacs are now seagulls, and the go fast is now the go slow.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the question is, on the go fast or go slow video, who's lying now?
It gets so deep. We knew this was going to happen, though, Dave. Actually, you and I predicted this exact thing was going to happen, that between Galileo Project, NASA, and the DoD, they were going to prove everything mundane. And once they were done, that's it. And people like Stephen Greer are going to be like those guys really pushing it home. Like, who saw that coming? It potentially.
Here we go, buddy. Here we go. Thank you to all our super chatters. Here we go. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. We're talking NASA on the UFO report. And we're going to give you the breakdown of everything coming up here with little Timmy Seanor just a moment. But let's remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. All right, Tim, let's get right to it. NASA, if you're just tuning in, had a big public inquiry about UFOs today, and for some reason, the panel of 14 who was supposed to look into NASA didn't mention NASA at all. Didn't mention any astronauts who had sightings, didn't mention any rockets that have been followed, even though there is video and audio put together showing that almost every rocket NASA and now SpaceX has launched has been followed by anomalous objects. The good news was Russia or China were not brought up. We have a victory there. But the rest of it, complete waste of 2 hours of your life you will never get back. Here's the Coles Notes. Tim, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, buddy. Yeah. Can I just say one of the highlights for me with this dog and pony show was David Grinspoon, like 4 hours into this, kind of on his back foot, like, why would we lie? We're scientists, and if we were to be the guys to deliver the facts that alien or extraterrestrials were here, or we knew of their existence, we'd be right there with the information. And then he kind of ponders for a moment, and he's like, of course, after we had considered all the data and made sure that all of our data points were valid, the last thing you want to do is announce something and then have to retract it. But that's not transparency. That's not like, hey, we found something, let's talk about it. It's not like, hey, look at these photos, we don't know what it is. It's just that fact that right there he's admitting there's a bunch of stuff we've looked at and we're not sure, so we're not talking about it. It's just that way to be able to look you right in the eye and not tell you that they're not going to tell you anything. And random guy, you nailed it. It felt like a waste of time. Now, again, we got to consider this was preliminary. Maybe there was 1 out of 14 in there that is considering this for the first time and is interested, and we've sparked some interest in them, and they'll want some truth, and maybe they'll try to independently bring it to the public. But boy, you're really rolling the dice there, and we know, just coming back from Vegas, anyone that went there probably came back with less money, right? The odds are stacked against us, and the house always wins. So, we have to consider that. Now, Sean Kirkpatrick brought some interesting new highlights that we hadn't seen before. Dave, do you value any of the input from the slides, or are you just like, this is more
No,
nonsense
more
and smoke and
nonsense.
mirrors?
Look, Sean Kirkpatrick has done a hell of a job at playing down the idea that UFOs are even in existence. His entire job is to be the mother hen ruining the party. That's his job. Ruin the party. That's why Lou Elizondo is not a fan of his. That's why people on, the pro UFO side want nothing to do with him, can't wait for him to step down. All right. And probably will go over to run Enigma Labs and make $1 million a year. But that's another story. Okay. Here's one thing that I was disappointed in is reading a number of Twitter comments from those who they're not in ufology, but they seem to be loud voices in ufology. Jeremy Corbell, Sean Cahill, and many others saying today was a wonderful day, a victorious day for ufology, and that it's something that we have to take baby steps with. Okay? This is where I have a problem. There was no victory today. There was no victory. There were no answers. NASA still holding its secrets. A panel of 14 hired on a $100,000 budget, and half of them can't even tell you what a UFO is.
Well, yeah. Now let's consider for a moment exactly what Lou Elizondo did say, can we?
Sure.
I
Go
mean,
ahead.
what he says here is that he thinks it's pretty evident that NASA nor the government knows what the hell is going on regarding these orbs. Chances are the same holds true for many other incursions. And that is a quote, and so he's also saying that NASA staff are being harassed, and he feels like it's reinforcing that stigma. And so he's reinforcing that that's been his perspective the whole time, that we need to remove it. So, kind of two different things there, but consider that for a moment. I'm sorry to have to swear there in that quote, but you can consider the fact that this is an interesting time, and we're getting information from NASA. They are considering this. So I don't know, Dave, what's your perspective?
They have to start giving information. Okay? Stop pushing the topic away. Stop treading water. I mean, it's like training children how to swim again. Each and every time we have one of these hearings or panels or discussions, it's like watching children learning how to swim. And everybody who actually knows something about this topic is pushed to the side. If they really, really wanted to bring this topic out, ladies and gentlemen, you have about 300 scientists who are signed up with the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, otherwise known as the SCU. You have many members who are very public about this, like Jacques Vallée and Stanford Gary Nolan, Dr. Michael P. Masters, with his extra temptation island terrestrials or whatever the hell he calls them. Okay. He's a good fan of this show. What about Simeon Hine? another doctor who's been looking into this. What about Bob McGuire? Okay. And they don't even need to be scientists. You telling me that somebody like Richard Dolan, who is a former professor, couldn't help out with this?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you know who I did like in this panel, and I'm just gonna say this, Mike Gold, right? This is the guy that spoke up at one point, calling this an anomaly in a haystack. If you might remember, he was in the back right in the panel, and part of what he said is, "Why are we here?" Not meaning us as humans, but those panelists. Like, we haven't even defined what we're looking for. What are we looking for? He didn't even seem to realize why he was in the room, right? This guy is pure gold. Mike Gold, you are pure gold, buddy. I love that you think and speak without any filter. Well done. Because this is the guy that also um, is saying that it's time that NASA kind of helps pushing back against the stigma. Like, it's pretty much feels like the stigma is coming from NASA itself. Otherwise, we'd be hearing from their astronauts. Pretty frustrating, but it just shows the fact that these people were just pulled out of a hat and weren't properly prepared before this initial meeting.
Tim, if you are setting up, I know you're not a sports guy, but if you're setting up a baseball team and you got to play, doesn't matter which team, the Los Angeles Angels, New York Yankees, Boston Red Sox. I'm not a National League fan, so we'll stick with the American League. Are you going to send out a team of rookies against an all-star lineup or a true bona fide Major League Baseball lineup? Are you going to take a bunch of 16-year-olds, 17, 18-year-olds and put them on the diamond?
No, 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 you wouldn't. But you know who the manager of that was, who went right out into the audience after he made his speech, Sean Kirkpatrick. And he was sure to step in and have a word when things needed to be kind of corralled back towards the conversation at hand. It was very obvious that they'd all been briefed by him before, and there was a level of things that weren't going to be covered, that sort of thing. And his presence throughout, I thought he had left after, but he wasn't on camera, but no, he was in the audience. And so I found that very interesting, that it felt like he was kind of keeping them corralled on topic.
Well, that's fine and dandy, but they weren't even on topic. When this and I will repeat again, when this $100,000 came out, it was supposed to be Bill Nelson's baby, bringing in a bunch of elite scientists to wrangle up them UAPs and find out what NASA knows.
Right.
And nobody asks a question publicly, what's in your closet?
You're so right. You're so 100% right. However, Kirkpatrick shared several slides, and I'll quote here again from the debrief, that included updated versions of those previously shared during a Senate hearing earlier this year, which conveyed AARO's latest data on typically reported characteristics of UAP, as well as recommendations for NASA's independent study. And in, me seeing that, Dave, was kind of in the beginning of the presentation, kind of corralling people, letting them know these are within the boundaries of what we're going to be talking about, in my opinion. And so Kirkpatrick also addressed a video depicting a metallic orb filmed over the Middle East that was first revealed during Senate session weeks ago, noting that similar objects have been seen all over the world, adding that we see these making very interesting apparent maneuvers. But again, I would like to note that in this, we still haven't seen this object, Dave, really breaking any of those rules of physics that would consider this thing phenomenal. But back to this article, responding to a question from a study member, Nadia Drake, about the number of reports currently in AARO's collection, Kirkpatrick said, "We are now over 800. Noting that close to 100 new reports were obtained from recently acquired FAA data on UAP. So, Dave, I thought this was also interesting that now just finally we're getting a collaboration between the FAA and Aero, but we'd been told that both civil and commercial and NASA had been collaborating for months now. So it's a bit of two different pieces of information. Even in his slide, it stated that they'd been collaborating. So why is this kind of a new thing that we're hearing from them in this new piece of information? Conflicting information that I just thought was of note, because it kind of points out that they don't know what is going on with this collaboration. And so in this, continuing on, if you like, Dave, did you want to chime in here before I move on?
Well, I do want to say something. If anybody
Please.
won during this, if this was a win-lose situation, ufology lost today. The big winner was the skeptics. Okay, Sean Kirkpatrick coming out and saying we have no reports of anything coming out of the water or anything coming from space. That's number one. Number two is the idea that the Go Fast video that was released proudly by the To the Stars Academy and Luis Elizondo and Chris Mellon were able to smuggle those three videos, the Go Fast, the Gimbal, and the Tic Tac videos, out of the Pentagon from the 2004 Nimitz incident. The scientists have broken that down, that the Go Fast video was traveling at about 40 miles an hour. I already saw Stephen Greenstreet from the New York Post tweeting about it, 40 miles an hour. You know, Mick West, another UFO skeptic, is having the time of his life with this. All right. That video has been out for 5+ years, 6+ years. It has been the go-to video for media reports. And to find out that thing is traveling below the speed limit on an interstate, that is incredulous to what we have been told privately and publicly before today's events. Now, do we believe NASA on this and the scientists who studied it at going 40 miles an hour? Or does this make Kevin Day, who was the radar operator on the USS Princeton during the 2004 event, does this now make him a liar, where he was saying that they had detections of these craft traveling at 60, 70, 80,000 miles per hour?
Yeah.
80,000 feet down to 10,000 feet, or down to 10 feet above sea level in 0.78 seconds. So is Kevin Day a liar now? Are the fighter pilots not to be trusted, even though they are trained observers of things in the sky?
No.
Like, there's a lot of information that completely fed the skeptical people of this, and unfortunately, that's what's going to come out. And this is why when I look at somebody like who's been involved with this, like Elizondo or Cahill, coming on saying, baby steps, people, baby steps, we open the door. Dude, you've had 6 years to open the door. You've had 66 years, 70 years plus to open the door.
That's right.
It's a line of crap, Tim. It's a
Yeah.
line of crap.
Joshua Semeter was the panel member that came to illustrate the point, that referenced one of the three historic Navy UAP videos, popularly known as Go Fast, noting that information that included the elevation, angle of the camera, azimuth angle, target range, and other relevant data are all featured on the screen. And based on such information, Semeter said that the object in the footage was not moving as quickly as the footage seemed to convey, a conclusion consistent with previous analysis of the footage that concluded the parallax effect could account for the apparent speed of the object. And I would also like to just very quickly highlight that considering the alt bearing and range, they were able to also consider that the platform was probably that the camera was mounted on was moving at 430 miles an hour. And so They are considering it going at 40 miles an hour. Just very quickly did some very basic trigonometry and were able to come up with those details and consistent with something mundane. And Dave, obviously that is incredibly frustrating to have somebody so nonchalantly assume some of that information. But now again, some of it could be factual, but the fact that we've been fed this for so long, and this was obviously a narrative that has been, bred into the UFO society. What would be the reason for that at this point, other than to kind of throw things down a channel to make money for something or something else? Dave, help me.
Well, I
Where
think
am
it
I
is.
going with that?
It's about money, and it's about trying to bring these people more budget. More budget, more budget, more budget. I think Random Guy says it completely fair here in our chat room today. Don't trust anyone celebrating today. It shows you who's real. And I think that is the realest statement that we could go by today.
Yeah.
Tim, I'm angry. You're disappointed, but there is a reality to this. Anyone celebrating this NASA public statement today shows you that they're not into it for anything else but to be nefarious. That's it. That's it. And, we only got about 90 seconds here before we got to wrap this up. But NASA, out of anybody on this planet, should know about UFOs and potential alien life forms. They played the people and the public for fools over $100,000 wishy-washy budget, and we got what we expected today. Nothing about whistleblowers, nothing about Apollo missions, nothing about Mercury, nothing about Gemini, nothing about the shuttle program. They didn't even address why the cameras get turned off every now and again for no reason passing the International Space Station. They barely got into it, Tim.
They said that they don't shut them off because of that. Because of, yeah.
Sure.
They addressed it. And can I highlight again very quickly how frustrating it was how they took the public questions and compiled multiple questions into a 5-part question to throw off the panelists on the iffy bits. So they were able to ask about astronauts, but not directly get any answers. And they were like, anyone? No one wanted to answer it. So they moved on to the next question. What was that? What was that? I mean, that's why I got up at 7:30. I mean, come on. Did you find that frustrating how they put all those questions together like that, Dave?
I did. I found it very frustrating. You don't ask the public for questions and then combine them 5 each. You don't. Do it properly. Be cool. NASA is nothing with that right now. They have egg on their face, and they deserve to have egg on their face. And as a taxpayer, and as people who have interest, and some people even have self-experience in this category, today was a big loss. Big loss by somebody who could have supported this entire program. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, the Space Travelers Club, LinkedIn, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We take us home.
I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night.